My name is Stephen Ayers. I'm the vicar of the Old North Church and the executive director of the Old North Foundation. Thank you for putting up the slides. I've also made copies of that with the core piece of the application that we're asking for your endorsement. For anybody else here who would like one, there are some, and there are more on the table back there. You may be aware that the Old North Church is in the process of planning some major restoration in anticipation of our 300th birthday, which takes place in 2023. There are two major components to the project we're working on now. One is a substantial restoration of the church, which, if we're lucky, will start in 2 or 3 years. That's mostly updating the church, bringing it into a modern code compliance. The most interesting part of that work will be repainting the interior of the church, and there's been some news recently about that as we conduct our paint study. The other a major piece of our program is to renovate the gardens to the side of the church. This is the more quiet courtyard. It's the one to the north of the church, not directly on the Freedom Trail. Right now, much like the Prado, the surface of that church is undulating, has drainage problems. The inner courtyard, the inner garden, which we call the Washington Garden. Now there's a picture of it. It's dominated by an overgrown crabapple tree. We had to trim that tree a couple years ago because the branches got so big nobody could get into the garden, and we were warned then by our arborist that once we did that it would start shooting suckers like crazy and never stop, and indeed he was correct. So it's becoming quite misshapen. The walls of the garden are in need of substantial repair, and we don't think it's a very well-used space. It's a large open space for the north end, and we would like it to be more usable both for our visitors and for the community as well. So that's a map of the existing conditions, and then maybe we'll go to the new condition. Is it just rotating on its own? It'll get there. There we go. Okay, there we go. What we want to do is open up that space, pull down some of the walls. How much of the walls separating the two spaces, the garden and the courtyard, we can pull down will be subject to Mass Historical Commission review, because that is the whole property is landmarked. But we can make it work. We'd like to open up a lot. If we can only open it up a little, it will still work okay. What we want to do is essentially create a integrated outdoor space. Where the current garden is now, we're really thinking of that as an outdoor classroom. The reason that 500,000 people come to Old North every year and come and visit the neighborhood and eat in a restaurant is because a poet back in 1860 wrote a poem that has become the most famous poem in the United States. That, of course, is Paul Revere's Ride. It is not posted anywhere in public in this town, which is crazy, and we think there is no better place to put a copy of Paul Revere's Ride than at the Old North Church, what makes us famous. And we feel an obligation to teach the many students who come to the church about the meaning of the poem and the values that are embedded in the poem. And so we want to recreate this garden and call it the Longfellow Garden with an artistic way that we will post the whole poem. What we're approaching the city for and asking for your support for is a grant from the Edward Ingersoll Brown Fund, which is a fund that's set up for public art. And what we would like to do is design an artistic way not only to post the poem, but also to think about this whole garden as a canvas, so that we might embed some quotes about freedom or some images that bring our patriotic values to mind in the surface of the courtyard as we are redoing that as well. We're hoping for this to be a water feature, maybe just a thin sheet of water coming over the poem, something to really enhance it, make this a nice, quiet, meditative space. There's only one major abutter who overlooks this garden. We are on very good terms with them. They have written an endorsement letter for our project. They are just starting to renovate their project, their house, and as a fun way of kind of giving a tip of the hat to what we're doing, they're actually on the scrim on the scaffolding. They're putting a picture of the Old North Church, and they'll say, "One up by man, two up by sea," so you can get a sense of what we're trying to do. Matt, that'll go up in a couple days. We'll get you a picture of it when it gets up. So that's what we're trying to do. We're asking for a grant of about $46,000 from the Brown Fund. The way the Brown Fund works, it's a two-step project. They will give you a grant to design what you want to do. You work with the city, you work with the Arts Commission, you hire your designers, and then once that's done, if the city approves it, they will then make a subsequent grant to actually manufacture that. The installation of the poem and the supplementary interpretive material is only a small part of this project. The project is all renovating the garden. It's about $700,000–800,000. We're working with the Beacon Hill Garden Club, who has been working on this particular garden since the 1940s. They're a full partner with us. They've helped raise the money to get us this far in the design process, and we're working very closely with them to raise the rest of the funds to do this project. So I'm before you tonight to answer any questions you have about this project or some of our other restoration that's going on, but also to ask for your endorsement for this. And if you do vote to endorse it, I hope I can leave with it because the grant's due tomorrow. So thank you. Yes?
Oh, I just want to say that there is a place in Boston, a very public place with Longfellow's poem.
Where is it?
Longfellow Bridge. It's on the sidewalk. I mean, most of the bridge is inaccessible, but I'm hoping they also retain it. But it's something you see as you walk over the bridge.
I thought it was just smooth.
Oh no, it's the other bridge, Mass Ave. So the connection's there.
Yes. Great.
How long is the project going to take?
This project is, we may do it in phases. The walls are in such shape, if I can raise funds for that sooner, I'm going to just repoint and repair the walls. But the overall project, this is about a 2–3 year project. We're just in the design phase now, and it's going to take a year to do the design phase. We want to have a series of community meetings, invite all of you to those meetings, get your input. We want to bring in school teachers to say, if we want this to be a classroom, how do we post a poem in a way that's going to work for you to teach your students? So if we get the grant over the course of the summer and fall, we'll conduct a number of community meetings. We'll give that to our design team. We have a local designer who specializes in arts and community process, and a water designer based in LA to design the feature itself. All that, we would hopefully have the design to the Brown Fund again by next March, which is their annual deadline for a grant. Once that's approved, assuming that we've raised the rest of the money, then we would perhaps go into construction late 2017, early 2018. The earliest we'll go into construction on the church restoration itself would be 2018. That's probably may take another year. The major grant for that is pending with the National Park Service.
So the church will be shut down.
There will, when we restore the church itself, there's going to be a period that we're going to have to close the church. We're studying the paint. Some of that paint goes back to 1723, which means a lot of that paint has lead in it. And so when we're doing the work in there, we just cannot be using it as a church. We do want to keep the campus open. We plan to build a raised walkway along the windows between the church and the gift shop, so that as tourists come through, they can look in and we will interpret what's going on with the preservation of the church. That's worked very well over in the Navy Yard, where the Constitution Museum was terrified they were going to go out of business with Constitution being closed. And it turns out it's actually helped them, its proximity to the museum and all the work they did to put together creative programs about how you restore old ships or old churches.
Couple of questions.
Yep.
You're going to work in tandem with the Historical Society and everything else to keep the area preserved so it looks...
Yeah, I mean, it will look different in that it's going to be opened up. It's going to look a lot cleaner. It looks pretty shabby now. But no, we are a national landmark. Everything we do is governed by the Secretary of the Interior's preservation standard. This summer, we hope to have the city archaeologist, Joe Bagley, in there doing some preliminary digs before we disturb any property on our campus. Joe Bagley has already mapped out the campus and says, this is where I insist that I get to dig if you're going to do anything. And there are parts of that garden that he wants to examine, so he will definitely be in there.
And the other question I have, just for reference, what's your how many visitors do you have a year? On average?
We have a little over 500,000 who actually go into the church. That's where we have an electric eye to count. We get about, believe it or not, in the little clubhouse with the chocolate shop and the print shop, we got 120,000 people through that tiny space last year. And we think from other studies that we may capture just people coming through the Freedom Trail, 4 out of 5 people. So if you think 600,000 or so people come through to see the Old North Church, most of them go in. It's obviously we're ranked number 4 in museums in Boston in terms of our draw, and unlike the others, it's mostly unique folks. They come once and then go back to Timbuktu or wherever they're visiting from.
What's the budget on this?
The overall budget for our capital campaign is $10 million. It's about $7 million for the church, $1 million for the garden. We also want to raise some maintenance endowments so that once we fix it up, it stays looking good.
So you want, obviously the community to help out.
I thank you very much for offering your support. Yes, as we go forward, we will engage everybody to help out, and we're really delighted to be part of this community to support you by bringing visitors here who enliven the community. And so yeah, any way we can help. If you would like, I would be happy to host a meeting. I know Phil came to one last summer where I just walk you through all the things that we're going to be working on. It's pretty cool now. We're just finishing up the first part of our paint study. The scaffolding is gone, thank God, before Easter, but it has left in its wake a beautiful cherub that's painted up in one of the galleries that dates back to 1727. It's really phenomenal, and there's 20 of those.
One quick thing, the Washington Garden is from the 1912 renovations?
No,
or
it's
is
actually
it-
from the 1912 renovations is what made the church look like a Protestant meeting house. We wanted to look like a colonial Anglican church, which will be much more vibrant. When we built, when the 1912 was done, shortly afterwards there was great fear of fire. Lots of buildings in the north end were firing, so we put in an ancient, what is now an ancient and rather silly fire suppression system. The sprinklers are on the outside of the church, and the valve, the hand-operated valve, is in the basement of the church. It's absolutely backwards. And so that's one of the main things that's driving us to do a major restoration. After we did that, the church organized a group called the Lantern League that came in and began to buy property that was immediately adjacent to the church. Almost all the courtyards had buildings in them, so we opened up a little breathing space for the church, and that was in the 20s and 30s, and the garden was open in the mid-30s. Beacon Hill Garden Club started working with us in the 1940s, and they've been there ever since.
Any other questions? Any questions from the community? All right, let's go ahead and vote on that. Thank you, Reverend Ayers.
Thank you.